At 7:27, 12 Ukrainian FP-2 drones were already screaming over the Black Sea at 80 meters. So low, most Russian search radars couldn't even see the sky they were in. 40 kilometers ahead sat Belbek airbase, the spine of Russia's air power in Crimea. And the people inside Belbek had no idea they were about to watch their defenses fail in sequence, like dominoes, until there was nothing left between the drones and the flight line. They call it air defense. At Belbek that morning, it turned into something else, a countdown. The 12 FP-2s flew in 3 loose groups of 4, spread across roughly 2 kilometers of open water. At 80 meters, they stayed under the radar horizon, effectively invisible, until they reached the 30-kilometer mark where the curvature of the Earth stopped hiding them. That was the entire plan. Don't fight the radar, fall below it. Back on the Ukrainian side, operators didn't have clear video yet. Their feeds wouldn't fully wake up until terminal approach. For now, they watched telemetry, altitude, heading, speed. 12 green icons crawling toward a coastline stacked with systems meant to erase them. At 0728, the lead group crossed that 30-kilometer line, and somewhere ahead, radar antennas were already turning, painting empty sky where the drones would appear in seconds. The first system to truly see them wasn't the one Russia trusted most. It was the Nebo SVU early warning radar, sitting on a rise northwest of the main runway, antenna rotating about once every 6 seconds. Most radars struggle with small drones because composite skins and radar-absorbing coatings scatter returns into noise. But Nebo works on VHF wavelengths, so long they don't care about stealth shaping. When the wave is bigger than what it hits, the target lights up anyway. The FP-2's 6-meter wingspan didn't look small anymore. At 0729, the Nebo operator watched 12 contacts materialize. Range 38 kilometers, bearing 315, closing at about 150 kilometers per hour. He pushed the alert to the S-400 battery. Threats inbound, request engagement. The response came back fast. Negative. Not because the S-400 crews didn't want to fire, because the S-400's own targeting logic refused to treat these tracks as real. Its software was built to filter out birds and weather clutter by ignoring anything moving slower than 100 kilometers per hour. These drones were cruising at 95. On S-400 screens, the drones flickered, appearing for one sweep, vanishing the next, never holding a solid track. The system was, in effect, auto-deleting the threat. So the base fell back on the only thing left that could actually engage low, slow targets, a Pantsir point defense system. And it wasn't in the right place. It was about 3 kilometers away, covering a fuel depot. At maximum speed across the base, it would take about 4 minutes to reach the radar site. The drones would arrive in 6. The map looked bad, and then it got worse. At 0732, the FP-2s crossed the coastline, still at 80 meters, visible to almost nothing except Nebo's long wavelength radar. Russian GPS jammers were saturating the spectrum, enough noise to scramble a cruise missile's navigation. But these drones weren't leaning on GPS alone. Each carried a navigation stack running multiple systems, including a downward-facing camera comparing the ground below against stored satellite imagery. Terrain matching that kept them on track even if satellites went blind. And while the jammers screamed, the drones just kept coming. Range to the closest Nebo radar, 8 kilometers. Time to impact, about 3 minutes. The Pantsir was now 2 kilometers from the radar site, finally moving into position when it hit something that should never stop an air defense system during an active attack. A fuel truck sat dead in the middle of the access road. Horn, no response. Radio calls, nothing. Whoever was supposed to move it wasn't hearing a thing. 30 seconds burned, then 45, then more. The driver lurched the Pantsir around the truck, bouncing through a drainage ditch, suspension groaning. A full minute vanished. And that minute was the difference between arrives in time and arrives to watch it happen. At 7:34, the lead FP2 pulled up to about 400 meters for its terminal dive. The Nebo painted it instantly. It could track the dive angle. It could calculate the impact point. It could do absolutely nothing to stop what happened next. 7 seconds later, a shaped charge hit the Nebo antenna array and turned roughly $35 million of VHF radar into debris scattered across the hillside. A radar designed to detect stealth aircraft at long range was destroyed by a drone it saw coming for 6 full minutes. And the nightmare didn't pause. A second Nebo SVU sat about 800 meters east. About 90 seconds later, it too was burning. Belbek had just gone blind. No early warning, no long-range detection. Threats could now approach to within 40 kilometers before anyone knew they were coming. But the S-400 still had one brain left, the 92N6 fire control radar, the part that actually guides missiles to targets. Someone had decided that radar was too valuable to lose, so they tried to protect it. They built a steel cage around it, and the cage was built for the wrong kind of threat. 3 FP2s approached from the northeast, terminal cameras already locked. The radar glowed hot against cold December ground. The lead drone began its dive at 0737, coming down at about 47 degrees. Outside the cage's intended protection angle. Steel bars that might stop a horizontal approach did nothing against a weapon falling from above. The warhead punched through the top of the radar vehicle and detonated inside. The cage stayed intact, proud, undamaged, protecting a system that no longer existed. Then the Pantsir finally reached the radar site, just in time to watch a third drone destroy a communications relay linking the S-400 to the regional network. 7 FP2s remained, and they turned toward the flight line. The Pantsir crew had about 90 seconds to stop them. The Pantsir lurched to a stop. The crew skipped stabilization procedures to get the search radar spinning immediately. Targets popped up fast. 3 contacts, about 4 kilometers out, around 400 meters altitude, descending, roughly 80 seconds to weapons release. On paper, the Pantsir had what it needed. 12 missiles, each capable of accelerating to Mach 3 and turning hard enough to shred a fighter's geometry. The tracking radar could follow small targets. This should have been easy. First missile away at 0739. The lead drone didn't evade. One-way drones don't dodge, they commit. The interceptor met it at about 3.2 kilometers and turned it into a spray of burning fragments. 11 missiles left. 2 drones left in this microfight. Second launch 6 seconds later. And this is where Ukraine did something simple that becomes brutal at the wrong moment. The remaining drones crossed paths. To radar, their returns merged into one blob, then split into 2 blobs moving apart. The seeker had to guess which blob was the original target. It guessed wrong. One drone exploded. The other, the one that mattered, kept flying. Now it was at 1.1 kilometers. Too close. Guided missiles need distance to arm their fuses. The Pantsir's missile required about 1,200 meters. The drone was already inside that line. So the operator switched to guns. Twin 30mm cannons, about 5,000 rounds per minute combined, designed to build a wall of fire nothing can pass through. The problem was geometry. The drone was diving at roughly 52 degrees. The guns could only elevate to 45. Tracers arced into empty sky. In 3 seconds, 200 rounds went nowhere near the target. At 0740, the shaped charge hit the Pantsir's engine compartment. Belbek lost its point defense. The early warning radars were debris. The fire control radar was scrapped. The Pantsir was burning. And 4 FP2s were still airborne, turning toward the apron. And sitting out in the open, canopies up, was a MiG-31 interceptor in the middle of an active attack. A drone approached from about 380 meters altitude. The camera showed the twin-tail silhouette, the open cockpits, the aircraft exposed like it was waiting for a wash. The operator centered the aim point where fuel and weapons lived close together. As 743, the shaped charge detonated. It didn't just explode. It focused, driving a jet through structure, fuel, and into the area where missiles were waiting. A secondary blast scattered burning debris across roughly 200 meters of concrete. Then, somewhere in the command post, someone made the next wrong call. Scramble fighters to hunt what was left. At 0746, 2 Su-27s began rolling out of hardened shelters. Maintenance crews rushed procedures, trying to compress a 5-minute sequence into 3 because drones were still circling overhead. By 0748, crews were finishing checks. In less than a minute, pilots would start the takeoff run. But 3 drones were already diving in from the north at about 180 kilometers per hour. The Su-27s sat on taxiway 3, about 50 meters apart, waiting for tower clearance. Technicians still moving around them with flashlights. At 0749, the first shaped charge detonated, punching into the wing root and weapons bay. 2 R-77 missiles hung on pylons with live rocket motors. Sympathetic detonation threw debris across the tarmac. Aviation fuel sprayed and ignited. The fireball rose high enough to light up the entire flight line. 2 seconds later, the second drone hit the trailing aircraft from above, through canopy, through cockpit, into the avionics bay. It didn't explode like the first, it simply burned, fire spreading as fuel lines ruptured. 2 Su-27s destroyed in under 4 seconds, and the third drone was already diving for the control tower. At 0750, the blast took out windows, shredded radar screens, and turned communications gear into shrapnel. Belbek's ability to coordinate flight operations collapsed right as the base tried to respond. The drones didn't have to win the air war that morning. They only had to remove the pieces that made the base function. And they did. Belbek didn't fall apart because it lacked equipment. It fell apart because the sequence broke its logic. Early warning first, then fire control, then point defense, then aircraft on the ground. Once the S-400 couldn't see slow targets, once the Nebo arrays were burning, and once the Pantsir arrived 1 minute too late, the rest was just targets waiting their turn. And in a strike like this, 1 minute isn't delay. It's the difference between interception and a flight line on fire.